Hello everyone and welcome to a bonus and unplanned episode of Leadnap Gaming. I'm still getting a ton of emails and comment questions trying to figure out the CCU thing, and also even just getting questions about why one might do this. So I decided I'm going to try to put together a quick video, and nothing special. The background's not going to change a whole lot. I'm just going to show you different kind of graphs and stuff explaining how this system works and why you might do it. Let's understand something right out the gate. If you're going into the sale and you're buying one ship and you got the money for it and everything like that, don't pay attention to what I'm talking about. Okay, this isn't for you unless maybe you want to get it with LTI and then this is for you. But the point of this is I've been talking to a lot of players that in some cases have only been playing since the September free fly. Some of them are just now becoming aware of the fact there's this whole catalog of ships that CIG won't sell them except for now. There's also Fleet Week where most of these ships go on sale again, and then the Alien Week that follows, that then a lot of these other ships are then sold, and you got the Drake sale too in there. But the point is, for the most part, this is the sale. This is the week where you're going to get what it is you want. That's why I'm putting this info out there, because if you've been saving all year for November knowing this was coming, you probably don't need this advice. But if you weren't saving all year for November, you've only been playing a couple months and there's a ship that you really want, this is why this advice is here and why I'm telling everybody kind of about this system. But I want to cover a couple of things too that CIG said that are specific to this sale that we've learned since I put those other videos out. Let's talk about what stock limited ships are. So stock limited are, and these are CIG's terms, are the ships that only a limited number of those ships is going to be sold. They're going to be sold in waves. We'll use the example of the Kraken, right? They're only going to sell a certain number of those at the sale, and it's not a very big number. That's what a stock limited ship is, a hull limited ship. And we're going to use the example of the A2 bomber. A hull limited ship is a ship that they're not selling a limited number, but there's still restrictions, namely that you cannot buy a CCU to it. So prior to this year, if you wanted to buy an A2, it was stock limited, which meant you needed to pay attention to when the waves began. You needed to be on that F5 key in order to get one. Now, they're not going to limit the number of A2s that can be bought. So if you want an A2, on Crusader Day and thereafter, you'll be able to buy one. But it's still a hull limited ship, which means you can't buy a CCU. So if you want an A2, plan to spend over $800 this week. And you're getting a 10-month version, because that's the rules. Now, CIG's been a little less clear about the hull limited stuff, so there might be CCUs available. So if there are, don't come back to this video. I said that's what generally the rule has been, and CIG has been very clear about stock limited and hasn't said a lot about the hull limited officially. So that's how that works. Now, the big change this year in regards to this stuff as well is CIG is limiting one each per account. So if you want to buy a Kraken, good news. You'll be able to buy one as long as you get in on that wave, but you can only buy one. And the reason for that is there are gray marketers who use bots that literally will try to buy 100 Krakens when they're released. Meaning that if the wave is 150 Krakens and one person buys 100, that means the thousands of the rest of you are all trying to get one of those 50. Each account can now only buy one of each limited type of ship. So if you want to buy an A2, you can, but you can't buy two of them. Hopefully that makes sense and kind of clears that up. And speaking of the Hercules, let's kind of get rolling on this whole CCU thing. Let's make believe you want to buy one. And God, that's one of my favorite ships. So a big question I've got is, why would I do this weird CCU calculus that you're doing? Why don't I just buy the CCU for what I want, right? Like if I've got a Cuddy Black and I want to make it a C2 Hercules, why don't I just buy a Cuddy Black to C2 CCU? And if you have a Cuddy Black, you're going to turn into a C2 Hercules. That is exactly what you should do. Pay the $255 and turn your Cuddy Black into a C2. You should absolutely do that. This system is built more around the idea, what if you don't know what you're turning into the C2 Hercules, right? Like, it's great if you know that Cuddy Black in my fleet is going to become a Hercules. Great. But if you don't know, what you're turning into the C2, then that's where this system kind of comes in. This is one of the types of buyers this video is being made for, right? If you don't actually know, you're like, well, I want to get one that has LTI. I don't have any LTI tokens, and I'm not sure which token I'm going to get. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, the only token available starting today is going to be the Nomad, but maybe you end up buying a Nomad CCU and you're like, oh, I really like the Nomad, so I don't want to turn this into a Hercules now. This is if you don't know what you're turning into the ship it is you want to have. So you can see here, and this is kind of the process simplified in a lot of cases. We don't know what we're turning into our C2. So that's why we buy from a seed. In this case, for the Hercules, the Aquila, a $315 ship. Last I remember. 310, 315, somewhere in there. So the point then, maybe it's even 320 now. The Aquila is always sold. You don't need to wait for the sale to buy one. And because you don't need to wait for a sale to buy one, you can always CCU to it. Because if you can buy it, you can CCU to it. That's why we're using an Aquila here. One of two reasons, really. But so we buy an Aquila to C2 Hercules CCU. And then we need to get our tokens. So we go down to the next bar here. And you can see here, like if we buy a Nomad, right, that's $70, $60 in. So now we need what I'm going to call the variable. What takes us from the Nomad to the Aquila. This can change depending on what our token is. Because like below you see, what if you use a CV Ranger? Notice the amount of money you're spending is a lot less than a Nomad because a Ranger is a $35 token. So the cost to go from the Ranger to the Aquila is more than it would be for the Nomad, but at the end of the day, it's going to cost you that $315, $320, whatever it was, to go to the Aquila to get an Aquila in your fleet. At the end of the day, you're going to pay the same amount of money for a C2 Hercules regardless. And that's kind of what this bar represents, right? At the token end, you have your $0 on the left, all the way to the right at the cost of a C2 Hercules at $370. You're never going to pay more or less depending on the token. It's just what it's going to cost you to take the token to the Aquila changes. But at the end of the day, what you'll pay isn't going to, the Aquila is going to cost the same amount of money. So again, this is if you don't know what you're going to turn into your Hercules, but you want to get a Hercules. The other reason this is valuable, like again, using our middle field, let's say you've got the $370 to buy a Hercules at the sale, but you want one with LTI, not 10-year insurance. Well, that's again why instead of buying a C2 Hercules, you would buy a Nomad, you would buy a C2 Hercules CCU, and in this case, you could just Nomad to C2, right? You've got the money. But that's how you would get a Hercules with LTI out of this annual sale with the same amount of money versus buying a Hercules that's going to come with 10-month insurance. So hopefully that part makes sense. But the biggest reason you would use this system is as follows. Let's say in this sale, you want to buy a C2, a Star Runner, and a Nomad. You've said, you know what, at the end of this sale, those are the three ships I want to have. Great, that's $660. But you only have a budget of $200 for the sale. Well, I can tell you right now, if you only have $200 and you go about this conventionally, you're going to buy a Nomad and nothing else. And you're going to have to wait. Well, and it's going to be ugly because the Star Runner was released. So you've got 30 days to pony up another $230. So maybe don't buy a Nomad and scrounge up 30 more bucks in order to get your Star Runner, because this is the release sale too for that. So you'll have 30 days to buy a Star Runner before they come off the market, and then you have to wait for COG to decide to sell them again randomly or at the annual or Fleet Week sales. And you're certainly not going to get a C2 for $200. That's why this system is important, because for $185, you can get all three. And this is the biggest reason I've been showing everybody this system, because you can see here, you're right, I can't fly them, but for $185, I can buy a $50 C2 CCU from the Aquila. I could buy a $75 CCU from the Prospector to the Star Runner, and I can get a Nomad for $185. So when the sale is over, because the C2 won't be sold again until it's released, hopefully very soon, and the Star Runner is release sale is now. So in one sense, these are probably only a couple months away anyways, but if there were some other ships you really wanted, right, this, if you don't have the money, this is how you can make your money stretch out and give you access to those ships you really want. I'm going to kind of re-explain this again here. Let's say you wanted those same ships, not so much the Nomad though. So let's say you were like, dude, I want a C2 Hercules and a Star Runner, but I want them with LTI. I've got $300. And this is to make it flyable. I'm showing you this. And this is kind of, again, what I was talking about a couple of videos ago. So you're going to buy your Nomad as soon as it releases this morning, right? When the sale opens, you're going to go buy that Nomad. And then you're going to wait. You can fly it around, do whatever you want with it. Tomorrow, 24 hours after that, and there's a timer, it'll tell you if you can or can't, you're going to melt it. And then you're going to turn around and you're going to go buy another Nomad. Except this time you're going to use the credit from melting Nomad number 1. Now this seems harebrained. Why would you do that? You already had the Nomad. Right, but now I've got a Nomad LTI token in my buyback, and I'm buying another Nomad with the same, like I'm getting the same credit value back. You might, because you're no longer paying Warbond, though you shouldn't have to add a little cash here, but generally speaking, you're getting the credit value of the Nomad, and you could just rinse and repeat, and you could do this for a couple days if you really wanted to rack up some tokens. But for our example, you're only going to do it once. So now you've melted a Nomad, and then you bought another one back with credit. You'll notice one was Warbond, one isn't. Doesn't really matter. That's just a pricing thing. Now you're also going to now buy your C2 and Star Runner CCUs. So at this point, let's keep in mind, we have 2 Nomads with 1 in buyback, and then we've got CCUs we're going to apply to each of them. At this point, on my graph here, I've said buy a Prospector to Star Runner CCU for 75, and then you're going to need to buy a Nomad to Prospector CCU for 95. Yes, you could just, because you're spending the money anyways, buy the Nomad to Star Runner CCU at this point, because you know I'm taking this Nomad and making it a Star Runner. So you could skip the whole seed thing here and just buy direct because you know what you're applying it to. At this point, right, you would apply those, and now you have a Mercury Star Runner with LTI. In your hangar, it's going to say Nomad with upgrade. That's fine, it doesn't matter. And then at a future date, you'll need to buy back, you'll need to spend another $70 to buy back Nomad number 1, and the C2's not flight ready anyway, you can't fly it right now. And then you'll need to make that Nomad into an Aquila, and then you'll be able to apply that $50 CCU that you have for the C2. And yes, you're going to spend this money at some point, but at the end of the sale, if you follow these instructions, you'll have yourself a Star Runner with LTI, and you'll be able to get your C2 when you're ready to pay the money in to get it. Another important note, you could melt the C2 CCU, because we've talked about this too, and this is kind of how the price locking works. If you melt the C2 CCU, you're going to get that $50 back, which would help you, right? Now you could get your Nomad to Prospector CCU for $45, because you're going to take that same $50 in credit and apply that in there. If you have $230 as opposed to $280, you could melt the Aquila to C2 CCU, get the credit for it, and now it's in buyback as well. But if in December the C2 price rises, we'll say $10, now you're going to pay $60 to get that CCU out of buyback. If it goes up $100, you're going to pay $150 to get that Aquila to C2 CCU out of buyback. Whatever the current price of the C2 is, to buy that out of buyback, you're going to have to spend it. Now, if you keep that Aquila C2 Hercules $50 CCU in your hangar live, and the price goes up $10 next month, you just saved $10 because the value of that CCU rises as well with the price, but you already paid for it. You only paid $50. So that's how that whole kind of price lock fixing thing works. So again, guys, this was quick. This was unscripted. Hopefully this explained, this is the answer to a lot of the questions I've been hitting in the comments in an email. So like I said before, you can email me, submit@leadnap.com. Might take me a while to get to you, but I will reply. But this hopefully explained this out a little more and gave you just a little more guidance. So don't forget to share this video out, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, and I will catch you all next time.